Welcome to today's deep dive. Are going to be talking about Apple.
ABBA.
Yeah, and how they basically went from almost going bankrupt
Oh, yeah.
in the mid-90s
Well,
to becoming like the tech giant they are today.
yeah, one of the biggest companies in the world.
It's a pretty amazing story.
Easy.
So we've got some really interesting sources here that kind of lay out just how bad things were,
Right.
and then how they managed to pull off like one of the biggest comebacks in business history.
It's a great business story.
Yeah.
It really shows just how quickly things can change in the tech world.
Yeah.
You know, one minute you're on top of the world,
Right.
the next minute you're struggling to survive.
Yeah. So let's rewind back to the mid-90s to kind of set the scene. Apple they were in a bad way.
Yeah.
Financially, they were a mess. They lost over $1 billion in a single year.
$1 billion.
$1 billion, which
That's
is
other computers they got to sell.
a lot of iPhones.
A lot of iPhones.
To make up for that.
Yeah.
To put that into perspective, imagine like your favorite store suddenly having empty shelves, right?
Right.
Like, employees looking kind of lost and confused, and there's all these rumors that the whole place is about to shut down.
Yeah.
That was Apple.
It really was. I mean, they were hemorrhaging money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one thing that was causing it.
Right.
It was a whole bunch of different problems all coming together at the same time.
So what were some of the, what were the main problems plaguing Apple at the time?
Well, one of the biggest problems was that their product line was just all over the place.
Okay.
They had way too many different models.
Too many products.
Too many products. And a lot of them, had overlapping features. So it was just confusing for customers. Like I remember back then trying to figure out, what's the difference between a Performa and a Quadra and a Power Macintosh?
Ah, right. It was confusing.
And they also had all these different versions of the operating system, System 7, 7.1, 7.5. It was a mess.
They were trying to be everything to everyone.
Exactly. They were trying to be all things to all people, and it just wasn't working.
Right.
They lost focus.
Yeah. And then you had, the elephant in the room. Microsoft Windows 95 had just launched, and it was like taking the world by storm.
Yeah.
And Apple's market share was, getting smaller and smaller.
It was getting eaten alive.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, Apple didn't really have a strong leader at the time.
Yeah, they were missing that visionary.
Yeah, after Steve Jobs left in the 80s,
right,
they had a few different CEOs, but none of them could really fill his shoes.
So they were kind of floundering a little bit.
Yeah, they were adrift, and their competitors were just eating their lunch.
Yeah, I remember reading that Michael Dell, the CEO of Dell Computer.
Yeah.
He actually suggested that Apple should just liquidate,
then
then return the money to shareholders. That's gotta hurt.
That's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah.
Being told by your rival to just give up.
Yeah, but you know what? Apple didn't give up.
To their credit.
Yeah.
They didn't throw in the towel.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. Because in 1996, they made this move that would completely change everything.
What was that?
They acquired NXT.
NXT?
Yeah, the company that Steve Jobs had founded after leaving Apple.
Oh, wow.
Over a decade earlier.
So Jobs is back.
Jobs is back.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. This was seen as a last-ditch effort by many, but it turned out to be a brilliant move.
Genius.
Yeah.
So the prodigal son returns.
He returns.
To save the company he created.
Yeah, and it's almost poetic, right?
It is.
The guy who built Apple from the ground up.
Right.
Comes back to rescue them from, the brink of collapse.
Yeah, but it wasn't just about the symbolism.
Right.
Jobs brought back his incredible focus and his vision, his ability to see where the tech industry was going.
Yeah.
It was uncanny.
So what were some of the first things Jobs did when he came back?
Well, one of the first things he did was he took a machete to their product line.
Okay.
He drastically cut down the number of models.
Okay.
And focused on just a few core products.
Out with the chaos.
Out with the chaos.
In with the clarity.
Exactly. He famously said, focus means saying no.
Okay.
And he was ruthless about it.
So he's simplifying.
Simplifying, streamlining, getting rid of anything that wasn't absolutely essential.
So he simplified the products, and then in 1998, they launched the iMac.
Yeah, iMac.
Which was this sleek, all-in-one computer.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, groundbreaking design, really easy to use.
It was so different from all the beige boxes that everyone else was selling.
It was so different. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen before.
Yeah, it was colorful. It was translucent.
It was fun.
It was fun. Yeah, exactly.
And it really showed the world that Apple was back.
It was a statement of intent.
They're back.
We're back. We're different.
Yeah.
We're innovative.
We're innovative.
And we're here to stay.
But then they did something really surprising. In 1997, even before the iMac launched.
Oh, what's that?
They announced a partnership with Microsoft.
Microsoft?
Yeah.
Their arch rival?
Their arch rival.
Wow, I don't remember that.
I know. It was a huge shock at the time.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft was the dominant force in the tech industry back then.
Right.
And Apple was, struggling to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And here they are announcing this partnership.
So what did the partnership entail?
Well, Bill Gates, he agreed to invest $150 million in Apple.
Wow.
And they even developed Microsoft Office for the Mac.
That's huge.
I know. So the company that, pretty much told them to liquidate ends up throwing them a lifeline.
That's crazy.
So why would Microsoft do that?
Well, there were a few reasons. For one thing, Microsoft was facing some antitrust concerns at the time. Okay. And this partnership helped to alleviate those concerns. Okay. It basically showed that they weren't trying to create a monopoly.
Got it.
And it also ensured that Apple, a key competitor, wouldn't completely disappear.
Right.
Which would have been bad for competition in the long run.
So it was self-preservation.
Yeah, partly.
But also smart business strategy.
Exactly.
Okay. And for Apple, this investment was way more than just a financial boost. It was a vote of confidence, at a time when faith in Apple was, super low. Yeah. And it showed investors and consumers that they were going to be around.
They're here to stay.
They're here to stay.
A new beginning.
Yeah, and this leads perfectly into their next big move, which was the Think Different ad campaign.
Yes.
That they launched shortly after the Microsoft deal.
Those ads were iconic.
Oh, yeah.
Black and white images of Einstein and Gandhi and Picasso.
Yeah, and the message, think different.
Yeah, it was powerful.
It was a real turning point, for their brand.
It was.
Because it wasn't just about selling products anymore. It was about redefining what Apple stood for.
It was about values.
Values.
Creativity, innovation.
Right.
Challenging the status quo.
They were positioning themselves as the brand for creatives.
Yes.
Innovators, the rebels, the dreamers.
The people who dared to think differently.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just marketing fluff.
Right.
Apple was actually starting to walk the walk.
Yeah.
They were developing products that really did empower creativity and self-expression.
So it was a genuine shift in their product strategy.
It was. They were putting their money where their mouth was.
They were backing it up.
They were backing it up, exactly.
They weren't just selling computers anymore. They were selling a way of thinking.
A lifestyle.
A lifestyle.
A way of seeing the world.
And their ambitions, well, they didn't stop there.
Yeah.
They were just getting started.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, they were about to embark on a journey that would completely revolutionize entire industries.
Wow.
Starting with the iPod in 2001.
The iPod, okay.
Yeah, but that's a story.
For next time.
For next time. Welcome back to our deep dive into Apple. So last time we were talking about their Think Different campaign and how that kind of marked their comeback.
That's a big moment for them.
Yeah, and how they were kind of on the verge of a new era. But what were the things that actually allowed them to not just survive, but really thrive in those years?
Well, that's a great question.
Right.
We talked about Steve Jobs coming back and their focus on design and user experience.
Yeah.
But I think to really understand their success, you gotta look at how all those things work together to create this powerful ecosystem.
Like a perfect storm of good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It all kind of came together at the right time.
So the iPod, right?
The iPod.
Launched in 2001.
Game changer.
Yeah, it seemed like almost overnight everyone was ditching their CD players.
Yeah, CD players were suddenly obsolete.
Yeah, and they had those big bulky CD players, right?
The skip protection.
Skip protection.
That never really worked.
It never worked.
You hit a bump and...
Oh, the music's skipping.
Yeah.
And the iPod was so sleek.
Yeah, it was tiny.
Tiny. And it held your entire music library.
It was incredible.
It felt like magic.
It did. It was like having thousands of songs in your pocket.
Yeah. But it wasn't just about the hardware, though, was it?
No, it was much more than that. Apple was really smart about creating a whole ecosystem around the iPod.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, they launched the iTunes Music Store in 2003.
Okay.
Which was this digital marketplace where you could, buy and download music legally and easily.
Yeah, because back then it was like Napster and all that.
Yeah, it was all kind of a Wild West.
The Wild West of downloading music.
Exactly. A lot of illegal file sharing.
Yeah.
And iTunes came along, and it was like, this legal, user-friendly alternative.
Yeah, it was like, here's a better way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people loved it.
So they basically like made it easy for people to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it just took off.
So iTunes became like the dominant force in digital music.
Pretty much.
And Apple was like leading the way.
Yeah, they saw where the industry was going.
Right.
They realized that the future of music was digital.
Okay.
And they built the infrastructure to make that happen.
So they didn't just like ride the wave, they created the wave.
They were the wave makers.
Yeah, and they kept innovating with the iPod too, right?
Yeah, constantly.
Like different models.
Different models, new features.
Yeah, they had the color displays, video playback.
Touch controls.
Yeah,
they were always pushing the envelope.
It's crazy how they made like such a strong brand around, a product that wasn't even a computer.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, everyone had those white earbuds.
It's a status symbol.
Yeah, it was like, if you had those white earbuds, you were cool.
You were part of the club.
Part of the club.
And Apple's marketing was just brilliant.
Yeah.
They understood how to connect with people emotionally.
Okay.
They weren't just selling a product, they were selling an experience.
Like a feeling.
Yeah.
Like those silhouette ads they had with the people dancing.
They were so cool.
Yeah, and you didn't even really see the product.
Right.
It was all about the music.
It was all about the feeling.
The feeling, and they weren't afraid to make like bold decisions. Like partnering with U2.
Oh, yeah, for that special edition iPod.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
And it got people talking.
Yeah, it was like they were always one step ahead.
Always innovating.
Yeah. But, the iPod was almost like a stepping stone.
So what?
To something even bigger.
Yeah.
Something that would, like, really change the world.
What was that?
The iPhone.
The iPhone.
Yeah.
That launched in 2007.
That was a revolution.
It was a revolution. It felt like everything changed overnight.
Yeah, it was like the future had arrived.
Yeah, it was like suddenly everyone had, a mini computer in their pocket.
Right. It was more than just a phone.
Yeah, it was like you could browse the internet.
Play games. Watch videos.
It was crazy. I remember when it first came out, I was kind of skeptical.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I don't need a phone that can, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then I got one.
Yeah.
I was hooked.
Yeah, everyone was.
It was like holding the future in your hand.
It was.
So how did they do it? How did they create something so revolutionary?
Well, I think there are a few key factors.
Okay.
First of all, the design was just beautiful.
Yeah, it was
sleek, intuitive.
Yeah.
It had that Apple magic.
The Apple magic.
Yeah.
And then the multi-touch interface was just so easy to use.
Yeah, you didn't need like a manual or anything.
Nope, it was just intuitive.
Okay, so the design and the user interface.
And then the App Store.
The App Store.
That was huge.
Huge.
Because it opened up like a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay.
Developers could create all these amazing apps.
Yeah, that could do like practically anything.
Yeah, to turn the iPhone into a platform.
So it wasn't just a phone, it was like an ecosystem.
Exactly.
And they didn't just stop there.
No, they kept iterating.
Improving.
New models, new features.
Yeah, like they added Series.
FaceTime.
Higher resolution cameras.
Yeah, they were always pushing the boundaries.
Pushing the limits.
So they created this amazing device.
Right.
And then they built this whole ecosystem around it.
With the App Store and iTunes.
And they had all these developers creating apps.
And people were buying iPhones like crazy. It was like a perfect storm of success.
It really was.
So what you're saying is like Apple's success during this period, it was a combination of like innovative products,
yes,
strategic partnerships,
absolutely,
and a really deep understanding of like what people wanted.
Yeah, they really understood their customers.
And they just had this laser focus on creating a great user experience.
But wanted to make products that people love to use.
Yeah, and we can't forget about Steve Jobs, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
He was like the driving force behind all of this.
He was the visionary.
Yeah, he had this uncanny ability to like predict what people would want.
Even before they knew they wanted it.
Yeah, but as we know, Jobs wasn't invincible.
Right.
He stepped down as CEO in 2011 because of health reasons.
Yeah.
And he passed away later that year.
A sad day.
A sad day. And a lot of people thought that that might be the end of an era for Apple.
Right. Like, could they survive without him?
Yeah, could they keep innovating without their visionary leader?
It was a big question mark.
So what happened? Did Apple falter, or did they, like, find a way to move forward?
Well, that's a great question, and that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Apple. So we've seen their journey, from almost going bankrupt to becoming this tech giant. But we left off at this really, uncertain time. Steve Jobs, the heart and soul of Apple.
In many ways.
Yeah, he was gone.
Big shoes to fill.
So what happened to Apple after Jobs? Did they keep going strong, or did they kind of lose their way?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because Jobs, he was this visionary leader.
Right.
But he also built a really strong team around him.
Oh, okay.
And he created this culture of innovation that kind of went beyond just him.
So it wasn't, all dependent on him?
Not entirely.
Okay.
And Tim Cook, who took over as CEO, he had been with Apple for a long time.
Yeah, he was there for the iPod.
The iPod, the iMac.
Yeah.
He was deeply involved in their operations.
So he wasn't, some outsider?
No. He knew Apple inside and out.
Okay, so he wasn't coming in with, a totally new vision?
No, but he did bring his own styles leadership.
Okay, so how was his leadership different from Jobs?
Well, Jobs was, very intense, very demanding.
Right.
Cook is, he's more calm, more measured.
More of a steady hand on the wheel.
Exactly. And I think that's what Apple needed at that time.
Okay, so what were some of the things that Apple did under Cook's leadership?
Well, they continued to refine their existing products.
Right.
The iPhone, the iPad, the Mac.
Yeah.
And they also expanded into new markets.
Like what?
Wearable technology.
Ah, the Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch, yeah, that was a big one.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, they really kind of pioneered that market.
And it wasn't just a tech gadget. It was like a fashion statement.
Yeah, it was a status symbol.
And they tied it into health and fitness too, right?
Exactly. They saw that people were becoming more health conscious.
Right.
And they wanted to be part of that trend.
So the Apple Watch, it wasn't just about telling time. It was about tracking your steps.
Your heart rate.
Yeah.
Your sleep.
Like a whole health companion.
Exactly.
And they also extended their services, right?
Yes. Services became a huge part of their business.
Like Apple Music.
Apple Music, iCloud, Apple Pay.
Yeah, Apple Pay, all of those things.
So they weren't just selling hardware anymore. They were selling a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, a whole suite of services that work seamlessly with their devices.
Okay, so it seems like they were really focused on creating a smooth, integrated experience for their users.
Absolutely. That was Cook's vision.
To make everything just work together.
Seamlessly, effortlessly.
And I think they've been pretty successful at that.
I agree. They've really mastered that art.
But they didn't just coast along, right?
No, they faced challenges.
What kind of challenges?
Well, privacy concerns.
Right.
Regulatory scrutiny.
Yeah.
Intense competition.
They had to keep innovating. They had to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, because the tech world moves so fast.
It's constantly changing.
And they were always in the spotlight, too.
Oh, yeah. Every move they made was scrutinized.
So they had a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But they managed to navigate it all and come out stronger.
Okay, so looking back at Apple's journey, what's their legacy?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they've been incredibly successful financially.
We're one of the most valuable companies in the world.
Yeah, but I think their legacy goes beyond just money.
What do you mean?
I think they've changed the way we think about technology.
Okay.
They've made it, more personal, more accessible.
More beautiful.
More beautiful, exactly.
They've shown that technology doesn't have to be cold and impersonal.
Right. It can be elegant.
Yeah.
It can be intuitive.
It can be something that you actually enjoy using.
Exactly.
And they've pushed the boundaries of innovation. They never settle.
Never.
And they've built this incredible brand loyalty.
Yeah, people love Apple products.
People love Apple products.
They're passionate about them.
So what's the takeaway from all of this?
I think it's that even in a world that's constantly changing,
right,
some things, they never go out of style.
Like what?
Like vision.
Vision, okay.
Innovation.
Right.
Customer focus,
right. Yeah,
and a commitment to excellence.
A commitment to excellence. Those are good values.
They are.
It's been amazing, really diving into Apple's story.
It's a fascinating story.
It is. It's really inspiring.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
I think we all learned a lot today.
I know I did.
Yeah, and maybe even got a little bit inspired.
I hope so.
To, go out there and think different.
think different.
Yeah, thanks again.